Will letting go of your script make you more money as a high-ticket closer? I followed the traditional advice and got some decent results, but it wasn't until I learned this new style that my income quadrupled. I went from making $5,000 per month to over $20,000 per month as a high-ticket closer in my first year, thanks to this new style. So in this video, I'm going to show you the new way of approaching your conversations so people thank you for closing them. And the best part is that it requires less work from your part in these conversations and it's much, much easier to learn. But first, I need to show you a big shift that's happening in the high-ticket space right now so you do not put people off right at the beginning of your interactions. And it all has to do with this concept of triggering sales resistance. The biggest reason why all methods don't work anymore in the high-ticket space is because they're constantly triggering sales resistance. When sales resistance is triggered in the mind of your prospect or your potential buyers, they immediately go into fight or flight mode. What does this mean? It means that they either fight you, they start challenging or questioning you and your approach, or the conversation starts to get combative. That's fight mode. Or flight mode is when they emotionally shut down from the conversation and they just feed you basic answers just to get going with the conversation. But they have already plugged off or turned off from the conversation. They are physically there, but mentally, they're just only waiting until the conversation ends, which is even worse. And that's what you want to avoid. You want to avoid triggering sales resistance because what you want to have is simply an open and honest conversation. But with these traditional methods, the sales resistance is constantly getting in the way and we are the ones triggering it. So let's just go here into the iPad. Let me show it to you so that you can see the difference and exactly how this new style works. Here's how traditional sales methods constantly trigger sales resistance. First of all, when we think about this style, is a controlling style, is a forcing style, is an interrogating style. All of these ingredients in the conversation is only going to make the conversation worse and is going to constantly be triggering sales resistance. Convincing. When we feel that someone is trying to convince us of something, it's constantly we trigger a defensive mechanism. And that's what traditional sales styles do. It's all about controlling, forcing, interrogating, convincing. Now, on the other side, this new method, which I call the self-reflective dialogue, we are more coming from a place of, instead of controlling or forcing, we are allowing things to come up, whatever that might be, whatever the problem, the issue, the concern. We're not trying to force an answer. We're allowing the things to come up based on where they're at and what it is that they're looking for. It's a detached style. In traditional sales methods, what happens is that people are constantly attached to the sale. The goal is to make a sale. Here, we're not even thinking about making a sale because at this point, very early in the conversation, we have nothing to sell. And that's why we are detached from the outcome. Like we really not care. We only care about executing this self-reflective process because the self-reflective dialogue is what creates the desire to move forward. And that desire comes from themselves, not because we've convinced them of anything. We're not looking to convince. We're not trying to do anything like that. We are looking to facilitate a process so that they can reflect about their own answers. They can come up with their own answers so that they can self-influence themselves. We're not influencing them. They're influencing themselves. This is the style that got me to $20,000 per month. That's the biggest thing, is constantly avoiding and staying away and neutralizing sales resistance, because the more sales resistance that we have in the call, the higher the likelihood they go into fight or flight mode, okay? Now, the problem with the traditional sales methods is that they're typically complex because they are script-based. So it's harder to learn and it's longer. It takes you longer to learn. Also, the conversations as well normally take longer because since you're focusing on following a script, you just miss all the opportunities. You miss all the shortcuts. You miss the real important thing, and the conversations turn out to be much, much, much longer. And overall, the outcome of these conversations tend to be less effective. I'm not saying that they don't work, but you do lose a lot of people, a lot of deals, but most importantly, a lot of people with problems that you could have helped. You just lose these people. Now, with this self-reflective method, because it's simpler, it's easier to learn, and the conversations also are shorter because we are more flexible. We're not that rigid. When you follow a script, you're very, very rigid. You don't have flexibility. So what happens? The outcome is a transformational conversation where people thank you because you had a conversation with them. With the traditional style, we're focusing on scripts. These are examples, specific examples of what the traditional style teaches you. You're focusing on rebuttals, or if they say this, you say that, which is more complex to learn because, okay, now if there are like 500 different things they can say, I have to memorize 500 different answers. It's crazy. They teach you logic traps, like little tricks and logic traps to kind of like trick people into thinking a specific way. That's why it feels convincing. And they use a lot of pressure. Pressure is an external reason, an external force, trying to influence the subject. Now, on the other side, with the new method, we use flexible frameworks. That's why we can have a shorter conversation, a more effective conversation, and a more relevant conversation as well, where the people is more engaged. Instead of using, they say this, you say that, we use emotional intelligence. We call out anything that we see. We train being able to read the person, read the room, and we just simply call it out and we just simply talk about it. As simple as that. So therefore, you don't need to have like, if they say this, you say that. We just simply have a method to just call it out and we just have a conversation. Instead of logic traps or being in this convincing mode, we use perspective awareness, which is they show us a way of looking at things. They show us their perspective and we share with them another perspective. And then they get to decide which perspective they want to keep or they want to adopt. Totally up to them based on their goals and whatever they want. So as you can see, we're not convincing them. We're facilitating a process, a conversation that is helping them help themselves. And instead of pressure, which is an external force applied to a subject, we use tension. And the difference is that tension is internal. It's a force that is growing from within. It's the internal tension that creates the decision and the drive that is generated by them. They are self-influencing themselves. That's the power of this method. And in terms of like the conversation breakdown, here's how the traditional methods, this is what they recommended to you. And I've seen this, it's crazy. It's crazy. Still people use this kind of conversation breakdowns and these methods is 5 minutes of discovery. So the discovery phase, the initial part where you dive into the person's situation, into the drivers, their goals, and really, really focus on understanding the person is just 5 minutes. Just 5 minutes. Then we go into 20 minutes of vomiting information and just pitching the offer, creating all kinds of objections and all kinds of overwhelming emotions. And then the next is just overcoming objections and just brute force close them. Yeah, you can get a sale or two. Yeah, you can close clients, but it's not effective. And at least myself, I didn't feel good about it. Now, with this new method, the dialogue breakdown looks like this. It's 25 to 30 minutes discovery. So we take our time, we really dive in, we really dive into this self-reflective approach. And by the end of the discovery, they've made their own decision. We haven't convinced them of anything. They've made their own decision of whether they're ready to take action or not. And if they pass the filter, they're a good fit, then we go into the offer. The offer is 8 minutes, nothing crazy. We're not going to overwhelm them. We're just going to tailor-make the offer for them, what they're looking for, answer a couple of questions they might have, and that's it. Then we can either directly enroll them, we can handle if they have any concern or they have any specific question or whatever, or if there's any logistics that we need to handle in terms of how they want to get enrolled, we just handle that and then we just simply collect the payment and enroll the clients. Much, much smoother, less work, easier to learn. And this is the method that when you implement it, people will thank you for having closed them, for having helped them come up with their own answers. So if you want to learn the method that not only took me from $0 to $20,000 per month as a high-ticket closer, but it's also taking my students to 5 figures per month as complete beginners, simply click this video and it will take you to a playlist where we dive deeper into our methodology that is called Cognitive Behavioral Dialogue. See you there.